Well, tactical voting could be key in these final 24 hours before the polls open. Many voters frustrated that in the UK's electoral system there are many constituencies where their vote may not actually make any difference. So tactical voting has become a big factor in this particular election. Opponents of the Conservatives have cited it as possibly the only way to defeat them. One of the most high-profile examples is the actor Steve Coogan. He's a long-time Labour supporter who's been campaigning over the last few days for the Liberal Democrats in his own constituency. And I'm pleased to say that Steve joins me now. Steve Coogan is in our central London studio. Steve, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
You're facing, well, for you an easy choice, but for many other voters it will be a difficult choice. As you said, a lifelong Labour supporter voting Lib Dem in this election. You're asking people to vote against, you know, the long-held beliefs and parties they believe in.
Yes, I am, but I think this election is unique. It's not like any other because I think the future of the country is at stake in a way that matters more than it has in the last 50 to 70 years. There's a lurch to the right across Europe, right-wing populism, and I think this current Conservative government is party to that rise and is a particularly pernicious form of Conservative government that even many Conservative, One Nation Conservatives, find alien to them, like Lord Heseltine, Kenneth Clarke and John Major, to name a handful, have been punished for going against the party line. It's a unique situation. So we're asking people, yes, for this one occasion, to suspend their normal party loyalties because there are bigger things at stake. So we're expecting, what we're asking people is, if you're in a marginal Tory constituency, who's the main contender? If the main contender is the Liberal Democrats, vote Liberal Democrat. If the main contender is Labour, vote Labour. And we're repeating to people from the Labour Party, Liberal Democrats, and even those One Nation Conservatives, whose party has been, frankly, wrested from them by these right-wing, I'd say fundamentalist politicians who prey on people's prejudices and appeal to the worst side of human nature, and they need to be hobbled. Yeah,
but Steve, there are Conservative voters out there who will be voting Conservative, perhaps because they've always voted Conservative, perhaps because what's that in that manifesto appeals to them. It benefits them, it benefits their family, it benefits their job. They'll be going out tomorrow and voting in good faith. It's quite uncomfortable for them to think that their vote might not count because others are gaming the system.
Well, Lord Heseltine has made it quite clear he'll be voting Liberal. Now, he's a Conservative of great integrity, even though I disagree with him politically. He's someone who has what we might call, or used to be called, common decency. And it's something that the old Conservative Party, even though I disagree with them, had. This current Conservative administration arrives roughshod through those things. It plays fast and loose with the facts. Boris Johnson is not a principled politician. The day before the referendum, he wrote 2 articles, one in favour of Brexit, one against Brexit. So clearly he has no ideological commitment. He's just interested in one thing, and that's the preservation of his career. He's not a man of principle.
But this is against Boris Johnson. Obviously, you're part of this movement that is for anyone but Boris Johnson. But what about local Conservative candidates who, in their constituency, are making a real difference to people's lives? They could lose out here, and people could see this as disingenuous. And when we're putting pressure on politicians to be truthful, you've highlighted that yourself, people are going to the polls and lying with their vote.
No, people are going to the polls trying to change the direction of this country because there are more important things than even local party politics at this stage. We need to stop this government in its tracks. It's not even the traditional kind of Conservative government. And the only way to do that is to vote Liberal, or if you're in a Liberal marginal, or Labour in a Labour marginal. There are bigger things afoot. And so, you know, it's time to sort of change things and stop this lurch to the right that's happening across Europe. It's the most pernicious thing. It's something that needs to be halted.
Steve, you've been very clear, anyone but Boris Johnson. You're voting Liberal Democrat when you're a Labour supporter as part of this tactical voting movement that, you know, 1 in 3 voters say they're considering doing it. Websites have crashed today. People are taking an interest in this in the build-up to tomorrow. But what do you want to see the government look like on Friday? Because we've been mentioning the polls are narrowing. We could end up with a hung parliament, which takes us back to square one. If Labour get in and it's a minority, other leaders have said they're very clear they won't work with him. And all the other opposition parties are so different. Labour, like full sugar Coke, Lib Dem like Diet Coke. Do you see what I mean? It's a very difficult situation for people.
I think the most important thing is to stop this push over a cliff. It's dog whistle politics. Boris Johnson thinks that if we leave, then everything's going to be fine and dandy. That's a magic silver bullet. It's not. We're in a mess. The whole country's divided. If we leave in a few months' time with a Boris Johnson government, we'll still have all the problems because it's a very divisive, extreme measure. The only way out of this mess is for a cross-party agreement where we dig ourselves out of this mess slowly, day by day. There's no magic silver bullet.
OK. Steve, I do have to ask about your motivation for this. Is this Brexit related for you in terms of there was a referendum, it ended up in the vote leave? Is that what you want to see happen on Friday? A party get in that will either offer a second referendum or to revoke Article 50? Is that what you'd like to see?
It goes beyond Brexit for me. It's about how we treat our fellow human beings. And as I said, I think there's a kind of a consensus, a cross-party consensus of politicians and voters who don't like the smell of this Labour government. It's the nasty party. It's encouraging prejudicial exploits people's ignorance and people's fears and insecurities in the worst possible way. So the appeal is, and there's a consensus about this, of people who think that this is a different kind of politics and we want to get back to the politics of consensus and the politics of decency. That is my overriding concern, beyond even the Brexit or Remain question. OK,
Steve Coogan, really interested to hear from you today. Thank you very much for your time. Steve Coogan, who's been out and about campaigning with the Liberal Democrats in his constituency as part of this tactical voting campaign. A lot of people very interested in that. Let me know what you think at Sky News. #SJM Show. Is it something that you've looked into? Perhaps you think it may work in your constituency. As I said, a lot of websites have crashed today with people finally making up their mind ahead of going out to vote tomorrow.